World leaders challenged to ensure a borderless cyberspace.
Independent National Electoral Commission to spend 700 million naira on continuous voter registration this year.
Fire got part of Sam Mbakwe Airport in Owerri, Imo State.
On Good Morning Nigeria today, our focus is on the menace of kidnapping nationwide.
Several years ago, the idea of being kidnapped did not cross the minds of the average Nigerian, as it was seen as more or less like other people's problem, especially the rich.
Well, Kieran, that certainly is no longer the case, as the grim fact of being kidnapped is more real than ever. And this has many ordinary Nigerians looking over their shoulders with chills down their spines.
Yes, and the fact here is that kidnapping is not new to Nigerians. The kidnap of the Chibok girls, the Dapchi school girls, and even more recent cases like the operation, which was aborted by the governor of Kaduna State, come to mind.
Of course, Kieran, we also have to add that the southeast and south-south states, for many years, kidnapping had been quite rife. But particularly what is apparently new now is the frequency of the crimes of kidnapping, together with the impunity displayed by the perpetrators.
All right, and in the past, kidnappers seized their victims under the cover of darkness, but it appears the reverse is now the case. We have heard reports of passengers in buses being kidnapped on busy roads.
All right, and many also have been kidnapped just because they appeared to be affluent, while others were picked up to replace unavailable targets. Now, the heart-wrenching side of all of this, of course, is the murder of some of these victims for apparently very irrational reasons.
Well, though some have pointed accusing fingers at security agencies who they believe can do more to address the issue, the alarming cases of kidnapping in the country today is a source of concern to many.
Now, nearly every state in Nigeria today is confronted with the challenge, but the most alarming casualty figures in Zamfara recently attracted the federal government response, and that's by way of banning all or suspending all mining activities in that state. It's said that the enterprise was said to have attracted foreigners who were accused of either aiding or abetting banditry as well as kidnapping in Zamfara and its environs. Now, these developments obviously have informed our focus on the menace of kidnapping nationwide. My name is Kingsley Osadolo, and I welcome you to today's edition of Good Morning Nigeria.
And I am Kieran Umayo. It's good to have you join us on the program, broadcast live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We are in Abuja, the nation's capital city. And as always, the complimentary parts of the program shall be brought to you, including a newspaper review, business, sports, foreign, and entertainment news. Now, the morning news here right now with Usman Aliyu. Hello, Usman.
Kingsley, good morning, Kieran and Kingsley. Here is the news. We begin with aviation. Part of the Sambakwe airport was gutted by fire on Monday. The VIP and the arrival lounge was affected, but flight operations are still available. As at the time we received this report, there were no casualties recorded. Governor of Imo State, Rochas Okorocha, who inspected the affected area before boarding a flight out of the state, said the Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria should, as a matter of urgency, fix the affected area. He, however, advised passengers not to panic as the situation was under control. And all leaders and other critical stakeholders responsible for shaping the digital future have been challenged to do whatever it takes towards ensuring that the borderless cyberspace, now transforming the world, is not only inclusive and accessible, but more importantly safe. President Muhammadu Buhari threw the challenge while addressing participants at the 9th annual investment meeting in Dubai, the United Arab Emirates.
Faceless and without physical addresses. This is why we must all come together to protect the good while eliminating the bad. Emerging threats are difficult to prevent or manage unilaterally. A certain level of regulation is needed to preserve the integrity of the digital economy.
And still in Dubai, President Muhammadu Buhari has made a case for more aggressive investment in Nigeria's profitable economy by existing and prospective investors, saying the country remains the best destination for return on investments. This was while engaging various groups of investors at separate meetings on the sidelines of the annual investment meeting in Dubai, United Arab Emirates.
How they can invest in Nigeria in the retail sector, hypermarkets, supermarkets, malls, and but more importantly for Nigeria, how they can also invest in local agricultural products and help to market them and export them. So that was something that's extremely interesting for Nigeria.
And similarly, Foreign Affairs Minister Jeffrey Onyama has described Nigeria's participation at the ongoing Dubai Investment Summit as one of the fruits of the economic diplomacy initiative aimed at attracting more investments to the country. The minister and some government officials spoke on the meeting.
Important because globally we've seen the UAE become more aggressive in investment in Africa.
So coming here is a way of direct attracting these foreign direct investments into the housing sector, into the country.
I think the President certainly will speak to a whole range of investors, but there is clearly a big infrastructure deficit which we need to fix in the country.
And back home, federal government to develop a new policy that will strengthen agricultural extension services towards boosting food production and processing in the country. Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development Audu Obe says one-stop shop will also be established in all the local government areas in the country.
The only guarantee to improving national food and nutrition security, it is also the only way to ensuring the development of high-quality agricultural products that can compete effectively in the global market.
The Independent National Electoral Commission INEC is to spend 700 million naira for continuous voter registration in 2019. Chairman of the Commission, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, made the submission during the Commission's 2019 budget defense before the National Assembly Joint Committee on INEC.
Voter registration for the two states where we are going to have major elections. But we need some discussions around the voter registration before we go back to doing the voter registration nationwide, including the kind of machines that we have used for the voter registration.
And there is a hope for a more robust executive-legislature relationship during the 9th Assembly, resonates among senators and House of Representatives members-elect. Correspondent reports on the commencement of orientation for the second batch of the newly elected lawmakers.
We're praying that we have those leaders who will be able to sustain what we have done in the 8th Assembly and even surpass. And we don't want any leadership that would take us back. We have made a lot of mileage, and we hope that we're able to get the kind of leadership that will build on the achievement of this assembly, which is unparalleled in our legislative history.
Issues relating to environment, climate change, impact on sustainable tourism development, global ethics and tourism, and the new media, digital tourism, top discussion at the 2019 Tourism Journalism Communication Training in Abuja.
Nigeria is a tourism destination. There is no doubt about that. But the way and manner these endowments are reported to the outside world, apart from our national consumption, is of critical importance.
And that's the news for now. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Kingsley and Kieran after this break. Stay with us.
Your perfect family is under threat by germs. Infectious diseases are now the world's biggest killer of adults and children. These infectious diseases are caused by germs. They are everywhere. An average human being comes in contact with over 1 million germs daily in unclean water, dirty surfaces, in the toilets, on cuts and wounds, on your clothes. Germs can cause deadly diseases like typhoid, diarrhea, flu, and cough. To protect your family from germs, use the power of Dettol's One Capsule for surface cleaning in your bathing water, in your laundry water, for first aid to protect your family from up to 100 illness-causing germs. Introducing Dettol Antiseptic Liquid in Sachet for only 40 naira. Endorsed by the Nigerian Medical Association.
Getting around heartburn and indigestion can be tricky if you eat too much. Eat food that is too spicy or greasy, or lie down after eating. Heartburn and indigestion could always be around the corner. When they come, be prepared with Gaviscon Double Action. It works within 3 minutes and lasts up to 8 hours. Gaviscon Double Action. Many causes, one solution.
Here you go.
Madam.
That's it. Those nairas are enough.
Hi, dear. Helen! You got so much even after spending so little.
Savings is such a necessity.
You save everywhere. But here, you lose it all.
How?
With this?
Impossible.
New Tika Apic 10X. Even after applying up to 1 liter of your solution multiple times, you won't get the same cleaning that Apic gives you in a single round.
And the expense?
Far less compared to your 1 liter of solution. New Tika Apic. Toughen cleaning,
toughen savings.
Marketing of broadcast media products requires special skills which can only be acquired through training and experience. NTA TV College Jos is therefore organizing an intensive 3-week course on modern trends in broadcast media marketing. The course will equip participants with necessary skills to deal with contemporary marketing challenges and competition in the broadcast media. It is an essential course for marketers in the broadcast media to sharpen their skills and improve their capacities. Date, 23rd April to 10th May 2019. Venue, NTA Television College, Refuge, Jos. Course fee, 100,000 naira per participant, accommodation inclusive. For more inquiries, please contact us on 0803 314 4383 or 0806 980 9807. NTA TV College Jos, training you to be the best you want to be.
In today's world, it's tough being a woman. But thanks to So Clean, Nigeria's #1 detergent with stain magnet technology, doing washing is a whole lot faster and smarter too. Only So Clean has stain magnet technology with an advanced enzyme formula that pulls out even the toughest trapped dirt, just like powerful magnets. No wonder Nigerians love So Clean. So Clean, for a faster, brighter, cleaner wash.
If you hear a bomb explosion or gunshots of an active shooter, that might be a terror attack. At such times, always remember 3 action words. Run, hide, report. Don't try to run towards the terror scene to save the situation, because there might be a second bomb blast or another attack. Run far away and take cover. Make sure you are safe first. Yes, it is in our nature to sympathize over the hurt. But remember, only trained personnel can help in such situations. When in a secured environment, promptly call relevant authorities and help will come. For anonymous reporting, call 09630-3250-5 or 0813-2222-106. If you see something, say something. Nigeria unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria, and now let's go business. Federal government secures pact with Islamic Bank to fund textile industry and National Hajj Commission. Let's now join Kunle Adeyeye for details of that.
The technical assistance financing pact with the Islamic Development Bank for Nigeria's textile industry and the funding of the National Hajj Commission is to the tune of $523,823. A statement by the media advisor to the Minister of Finance, Paul Ella Abechi, states that the deal was signed at the 44th Islamic Development Bank Group annual meeting in Marrakesh, Morocco. Finance Minister Zainab Ahmed signed on behalf of the federal government, while the president of the bank, Dr. Banda Hajar, signed on behalf of the Islamic Bank. The minister emphasized that part of the fund, which will come in form of a grant, will be expended on capacity building, acquisition of equipment and logistics upgrade, and the National Hajj Commission, while a substantial part of the grant will be dedicated to the improvement of cotton, textile and garment value chain in the Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment. In another development, an economic analyst, Dr. Emeka Okengu, has advised the Central Bank of Nigeria to incorporate more states into its plan to revive palm oil production in Nigeria. The CBN recently engaged state governments from the southeast and south-south regions of the country.
And limiting it to calling state governors into a meeting. And I don't know how many state governors were there. I don't know if the Nasarawa state governor was there, because Nasarawa is a major palm oil producing state. FCT also produces oil. I hope you know that. Kaduna State also produces oil. It has to be a national program that now has to be driven by numbers, okay? By volumes that can unlock your values, by technologies.
And next is the graphic representation of Monday's trading on the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. With business news, I'm Kunle Adeyeye.
All right, thank you very much, Kunle Adeyeye, for the business package. Newspaper review is next for us on Good Morning Nigeria.
And here we have Bayo Atoyebi, our newspaper reviewer, here with us in the studio. Bayo, it's good to have you join us again today.
Thank you, Kiriam. Good morning. Good morning, Kinsley. Good morning, Nigeria.
And we have just 3 newspapers, Kinsley.
That's right.
And we have to start with the Daily Sun newspaper. Besides the nameplate of Daily Sun, Rivers helped me rule in Army as panel concludes probe. With a rider, Supreme Court dismisses Magnus Abe's suit on APC primaries. That's in Rivers State. It's on page 41. Now, the lead story, which is very, very important, xenophobic attacks, that's the kicker, 2 Nigerians murdered by South Africans. With a rider, civils, Nigerians beg federal government, especially Nigerians in South Africa. Now, the photograph there is that of the governor of Kaduna State, Malam El-Rufai, sympathizing with one of the victims of a banditry attack at the Binungwari General Hospital in Kaduna, and that was yesterday. On the right-hand side of the newspaper, you see Igbo insists on 2023 presidency. With the rider, Ohaneze offers others fault plot against Southeast producing next president. It's on page 6. Like below that, policeman 8 others killed in Ondo bank robbery. Page 4 has that story. And then 9th Senate, Southeast should produce deputy Senate president, says Ojuzo Kalu. It's on page 6. With a rider, I am not in alliance with opposition, says Ndume. Now, at the bottom of the Daily Sun, we have Buhari decries cyberspace election rigging. Is on page 3 of Daily Sun. Kingsley.
All right, let's also take a look at the New Telegraph. New Telegraph above the name flag, you have the headline, Fuel subsidy soars to 3 billion naira in one day. Crude hits $70 per barrel. That's one rider. Another rider says landing cost now 205 naira per liter. 14 billion naira transfer. Reps insist on interrogating industry minister. Details on page 9. Below the nameplate, you have a number of headlines there. Says Zenith Bank appoints Onyago as Group Managing Director. Fidelity announces new executive directors. PDP to National Assembly. Probe Nigeria's 24.38 trillion naira debt profile. That's page 9. 15 killed, 40 injured as trailer driver skids off-road. Is the trailer that skids, not the driver. Trailer skids or truck skids off-road. That's on page 36. Man Bag's life imprisonment for defiling list. That's page 36. Now, late story says, with a kicker, Reps Speaker, Dogara's men move against Gbajabiamila with 3 riders to sponsor North Central and Northeast candidates. Undume meets Oshibajo, insists on Senate presidency. Kalu, why APC should zone DSP, that's Deputy Senate President, to Southeast. You also have there on the front page the photograph of the Samambakwe Airport in Owerri with smoke billowing from the terminal building on account of a fire incident. Buhari woos foreign investors in Dubai assures of bumper turnover. That's page 9. Second lead story, right at the foot of the front page. Robbers attack bank, kill bankers, vice principal, customers, and policemen. And 20 gunmen killed, a gunman killed 20, set houses ablaze in Kaduna. That's page 7. And a health story there, chili peppers may stop lung cancer spread. That's chili pepper is the regular pepper that you have, a hot one.
The red one?
Yes.
Yes. Let's start with the National Assembly. Speaker Yakubu Dogara has advised the executive and political parties to allow lawmakers choose their own leaders. He says National Assembly members have always resisted the imposition of leaders on them. He advised that for the elected members to look out at among those who have thrown themselves into the race and see who will better aggregate the aspiration and surpass the record of the 8th National Assembly. He said, while we will not dictate to political parties, they have their manifestos. He, however, advised it is always better to allow the leadership to emerge from the people. Where leadership has been forced upon the people, be it National Assembly or Nigeria, the leadership in most cases never endures. Already from the headline that Kingsley read, he says Dogara's men is going against Gbajabiamila's interest. Since the advent of 2003 in the House of Representatives, there has been a caucus. Since the advent of Waziri Tambuwala's whip in the Assembly, their caucus have always made sure that they determine who becomes the leadership of the National Assembly. So it is not a free determination of leadership per se. There is a caucus that always insists that one of their own must be held the National Assembly. If you recall, even at the inception of the 8th National Assembly, Governor Waziri Tambuwal was there within the presence of the National Assembly to ensure that the leadership went the way they wanted. So there's a lot more that meets the eyes when it comes to the tussle of the leadership.
Talking about now the power brokers in the National
within the National Assembly.
Power brokers and kingmakers
who have been returning to the National Assembly.
But generally, they will tell you that let us determine our leadership by ourselves. But it's actually a clique that always determine who comes. The Independent Corrupt Practices has also given words of advice to members of the National Assembly at the orientation for the newly elected members, that is the members-elect who are waiting to be in the next National Assembly. Chairman of the Independent Corrupt Practices said that the legislators have aggregate budget allocations to media yearly, and it is the budget to the executive that is always an inducement for corruption. They challenge the legislature to be up and doing with their oversight to reduce the level of corruption, because it is more prevalent in the executive because they have the larger chunk of the budget. But he also had a word of advice for the members of the National Assembly. He said he condemned what he described as outlandish allowances of members. He says controversial constituency projects are also a matter of concern, and budget of the National Assembly has grown exponentially from 6.9 billion in 1999 to 139 billion in 2018 for the same number of legislators. He says the public perception of the legislators is being one of a corrupt set of persons, and it will not go away until the National Assembly throws open its yearly budget to the public. He says the shadow that the National Assembly has is that it has a one-line budget for which nobody knows the breakdown of the budget. Professor Owasaoye says that the problem is that National Assembly budget is hardly told, the public is hardly told about the breakdown. He described corruption as enemy of development and good governance, asserting that the legislature must wake up to its role in oversight. So the legislature oversights the executive, but issues of constituency projects and the budget that has grown from paltry 6.9 billion to 139 billion, who oversights that at the National Assembly?
You see, that's a very big question. I recall that we had a conversation on similar, matter on this program, where we raised the issue of the take-homes of the National Assembly members, and I also pointed the fact that even in Kenya, when Kenyatta, came to power, that was the first thing the country did, in the first 3 months, to reduce the pay pack, of the National Assembly of that country, and that is yielding dividend because, when elections come around, it's no longer a do or die affair in that country. Here, of course, we just came out of election, and we all know what happened.
Well, who will bail the cat? They have, if you want to put it in literal terms, they have the meat, they have the knife. And what they are saying that from the public perception, we have a representative of the people, of legislators, who earn one of the highest salaries in the world, and preside over representing the poorest people.
Who structured their salary?
Well, that's
who
what I was
structured their salary.
Kirian,
it can be restructured.
Kirian, that's the point I was going to make. Sometimes when this matter comes up, we tend to be addressing the wrong party. And in this case, we keep addressing the lawmakers themselves. The lawmakers are operating within a parameter. And that parameter has to do with the emoluments and perks of political office holders. What we are faced with at the moment was on account of the restructuring of the emoluments and perks of political office holders that took place between 2006 and then came into effect in 2007 under the administration of President Olusegun Obasanjo. And the rationale at that time was, okay, if you enhanced the pay or the emolument of political office holders, the tendency for them to be light-fingered, will be dramatically reduced. And the body that fixes that is the Revenue Mobilization and Allocation Fiscal Commission. That is its responsibility. It makes that proposal, and of course, once it becomes, once it gets approval by the appropriate authorities, then it stays. That is how you see the salaries, not just of special assistants, senior special assistants, special advisors, lawmakers, president. It is fixed. So they are operating within that parameter. We have to go back to, of course, it will take presidential initiative, for instance, to say, look, Revenue Mobilization and Allocation Fiscal Commission, what we are aiming at the moment is a drain on our purse. The country cannot continue to have this, because what happened at that time was, I think, almost a 300% jump in the pay of political office holders, from whether you were a commissioner, a minister, or otherwise. And today, what you have is, because the pay is there, a governor or a president can appoint as many aides as possible, except, of course, for the level of maybe number of advisors. You go and get approval either from the State House of Assembly or from the National Assembly. There is no cap as to how many commissioners you can have. There is no cap as to how many SSAs you can have, how many SSAs you can have. Yeah. As it is with your emolument, so it is with your allowances. Kieran, just hold on a second. What are the allowances? ESTA code, for instance, and your per diem. What is the ESTA code of, say, a commissioner or a minister? Some of these amounts, I mean, by Nigerian standards, you consider them to be scandalous, which is why when Nigerian government officials travel, some of them look for the most expensive hotels to stay in.
It's not just staying in big hotels. They change hotels from day to day. Some tomorrow I'm going to be in the other hotel because, of course, the money is there to pay for it. And
I think the challenge is not about the salary. Like Kingsley pointed out, it's provided for. It is, in fact, legislated. It's there, published as a schedule. The contention here is that the other day, if you remember, when the members of the National Assembly were challenged, the Speaker came out and gave an indication of what his pay slip indicated as a salary, and it's in conformity with what is scheduled. What is not accounted for and what nobody knows what it is the allowances that they are paid periodically, which nobody knows what it is. That is where the challenge is, and that is where the drain is.
And also the money they pay to their aides, including gardeners.
Those allowances are also not arbitrary. I mean, Bayo, you've been in the system. For every category of an officer, you have a schedule of the allowance you can earn. If you're per diem, for instance, if you are traveling within the country, and it's overnight. If you're also traveling abroad, you also know what it is. Assuming, I mean, they go for parliamentary union meetings and so on and so forth. That's also the lawmakers now. If they are going for 5 days or they are going for 10 days, calculate the ESTA code, the cost of the ESTA code, and multiply by Naira. Their budget is not in dollars. Their budget is in Naira. Yeah. So if they are going for 10 days, and I'm just assuming, and say the ESTA code per day is, let's say, $600. Multiply that, and the man is going away for 5 days. And it's one.
You see, if the man going alone, what about his aides? He may decide to go with his ESTA or PS who also get ESTA code along the line. And nobody determines how many aides should travel with a particular officer at a point in time. You know, that is the conduit pipe that we're talking about.
I agree with you.
Yeah. All right, now let's return to the newspaper that I have here now. That's the Nigerian Pilot that I have here now. Nigerian Pilot, below the nameplate, 20 reportedly killed in fresh Kaduna attacks on page 9. Revenue Commission to approve banks over 100 billion naira stamp duties. And now the lead story on the Nigerian Pilot, come to Nigeria and prosper. With 4 riders, Buhari tells investors in Dubai, says they would reap handsome returns on investment. We are ready to invest in Nigeria, Abu Dhabi CEOs. And now say they have interest in agriculture, power, oil and gas. And below the photograph in the front page of the Nigerian Pilot, we have Ndume insists on Senate presidency seat. Ms. Oshibajo behind closed doors. Page 8 has details of that story. The EFCC arrests railway officials over ticket racketeering. Alleged 29 billion naira fraud. Court admits more evidence against Nyako. It's on page 5. NAF strikes the great terrorists in northern Borno. Is on page 11. Rivers APC crisis. Supreme Court strikes out Abe's case on page 7. APC has no candidate for Anambra Central Senatorial seat, says the court, is on page 10.
Let's draw attention to robbery that has taken place in Ondo State at a place called Idoani. A gang of robbers used the same method that had always been used at 2:30 p.m. and blew down the security door at the bank and attacked the ATM. In the process, 4 customers who were at the ATM were killed. 2 bank workers were also killed. Immediately, the police and the army mobilized to the site and engaged the robbers. Unfortunately, the robbers escaped with bullet wounds. 1 policeman was killed, but the police public relations officer, Femi Joseph, has revealed that 1 of the robbers has been caught. Meanwhile, the Inspector General of Police have been very proactive in the issue of the challenge of banditry. He was at Briniguari yesterday to assess the situation. Also, Operation Puff Ada has been launched in Katsina by the Commissioner of Police in Katsina, Sanusi Buba. Many villagers and vigilantes and bandits have clashed somewhere in Samia Ju in Kankara local government of Katsina State. And the Air Force has also killed about 25 bandits in Zamfara. A businessman in Taraba who was abducted in Takum last month has told his family not to pay any more ransom. He had paid 100 million, but abductors refused to release him. And he says, please don't sell my property to give my abductors again. I am ready to die. Let my abductors kill me if they like. So the banditry is getting out of hand.
Exactly, and
that's what we are discussing the conversation segment this morning.
All right, to the editorial for the day, taken from the Daily Sun newspaper on page 15. It says, targeting millionaire tax debtors. The Federal Inland Revenue Service, FIRS, recently revealed that it will generate 750 billion naira from about 55,000 millionaire tax debtors in the country. The move may not be unconnected with the government's new revenue streams, especially the identification of new taxes, which the Finance Ministry is working on with the Inland Revenue Agency to fund the 2019 budget and broaden the tax base. Bayo.
Well, you will recall that the Federal Inland Revenue Service, while briefing the National Assembly, indicated that they were able to get about 23.35 billion from bank substitute exercise, which they embarked upon. And they also have now embarked on a target of 500 millionaire debtors who they expect to pay about 24 billion if they are able to meet this target. The Federal Inland Revenue Services has its schemes, particularly the latest is the Voluntary Offshore Asset Declaration Scheme, VOAS, and it believes that by the process it will be able to woo undeclared asset owners to come forward voluntarily to pay up their tax. The whole idea is that for who so much is given by Providence, have a lot of, should be able to pay a lot of tax. But most unfortunately, what happens is that the billionaires are the ones who incidentally hide their assets and pay very little tax. And therefore, you leave it to every poor public servant like you and others. Before your salary is paid, your tax is already deducted. And it ends up being a paltry thing and cannot go anywhere. And so the efforts should be intensified to ensure that the millionaires pay what is due.
And I know in some European countries, the nation is run mainly on tax revenue, you know, and here we have resources, but we lack, the kind of what we need to raise from tax payment. And it's so halting, that in a country like Nigeria, we have like 1,000 millionaires are not paying tax, or 55,000 millionaires are not paying tax. It's not a good story, honestly.
Tax was the basic source of revenue for government, right from the advent of the First Republic, with support from agricultural produce. However, with the advent of the oil boom, even the ordinary tax that was collected, which was called poll tax, was stopped. Everybody relaxed, and we felt that the oil boom was enough to sustain everybody. And now we are going back to make sure that people pay tax to provide services.
Good move, but there are also concerns now as to how well this can be implemented. That is a subject matter for another day. Companies are already complaining as to some of the measures being adopted by the tax authorities, that amounts as balances in their accounts are being, as it were, compulsorily taxed. Whether the amounts are for cost of business, or whether they are profits or accessible profits or otherwise, is virtually immaterial. But the point about, getting the wealthy to pay appropriate taxes is a useful one. Well, thanks a lot for being with us this morning. See you again tomorrow. All right, it's Good Morning Nigeria. We'll take a short break. Now, when we return, we'll be talking about the menace of banditry nationwide.
Nigerians. Suicide bombers are not spirits. They are not ghosts. They are human beings like you and me. They live amongst us. They are your neighbors. They are your friends today, but terrorists tomorrow. So you must know your neighbor now. Security begins with you and me. Know your neighbor. Be vigilant. Be security conscious. Report suspicious persons, objects, and movements to the police and other security agencies.
The security of our nation is a duty for you and me. If you see something, say something. Nigeria unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
What's up?
His friends didn't come.
Hey, let's practice.
But you're going out.
Don't worry about me.
Nothing satisfies a mother more than seeing a child grow up. But I know as he sweats, he'll face the risk of germs which can cause skin irritation.
That's why you need the new best ever Dettol Cool. Its new advanced formulation with extra menthol protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs and gives your family icy cool freshness.
Growing up needs Dettol protection.
A new edition of TV Guide is out with special focus on the role of the media in election coverage. Exclusive on the National Broadcasting Commission, its mandate as the sole regulator of Nigerian media. Dr. Toma Daba then and Ishak Modibo Kawu now. This edition also features the king of stand-up comedy in Nigeria, Ali Baba. NTA standards to be ready for election transmission after decades of abandonment. Find out from the DG transactional elections in our political space, and evil wind that blows no good. DG, National Orientation Agency, calls them TV Guide. Your indispensable companion x-rays the impact of social media on electioneering process as electorates present their expectations from incoming government. Meet some TV professionals behind the screen and other inspiring stories in sports, entertainment, and lots more. Grab a copy at the vendor near you or NTA stations nationwide. TV Guide, your indispensable companion.
When I was a little girl, I loved spending time with Mum and Grandma cleaning the house. I was so excited to sing in the choir.
And your shirts are always so white.
I knew what Mum's secret was. Today, I'm a modern woman that still trusts the secrets passed down to me. It's Jik, of course. The original trusted bleach, which can be used all around your house for amazing results.
Shh, it's our little secret.
It's no secret. It's Jik's best ever extra whitening power. Just Jik it.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the daring and invincible Louis the Mosquito. Responsible for 200 malaria cases all on its own. Is there anything that can kill Louis? Mortein! Presenting Mortein Power Guard. Its powerful formula kills malaria mosquitoes fast. So, get Mortein Power Guard.
Thank you for staying with us. Now, to set the tone for our conversation this morning, let's take this background report by Aisha Obali.
Today, it appears criminals are devising better ways of carrying out their nefarious activities in Nigeria. But government is not resting on its oars, as this boldness is being met with new strategies to beat them. Issues of banditry, kidnapping and abduction are some of the activity of these criminals who maim and even kill unlucky victims. Observers express worry over the spread to almost every part of the country, with analysts saying that the menace calls for adoption of stiffer penalties such as death and enacting a law. Most road networks linking major state capitals have become hotspots for kidnappers. The recent gunmen attack in Zamfara, which has generated a lot of concern, has prompted government ban on mining activities in the state. This, as security reports indicate that most miners are foreigners who have been accused of banditry. The huge ransom demanded by these criminals has placed a huge burden on families, prompting security agencies to develop new methods to tackle this problem. Many have expressed worry over the alarming number of kidnap cases in Nigeria and seek concerted efforts to ensure more arrests are made. Nigerians are still worried over what has happened to criminals who were arrested for these acts, and some insist more can be done to nip the challenge of kidnapping in the bud. Guests on Good Morning Nigeria will be discussing the issue and giving suggestions on the program this morning.
All right, thank you very much, Aisha, there for that background. We have guests with us in the studio to discuss this issue in greater detail. First, let's welcome Assistant Inspector General of Police, who is in charge of federal operations at the Force Headquarters. He's Peter Ogunyowo. AIG Ogunyowo, pleasure to have you with us on Good Morning Nigeria this morning.
Pleasure to be here, sir.
Okay. Also here with us is a familiar face on Good Morning Nigeria, Chief Mike Ejiofor. Chief Mike Ejiofor is a security consultant and is at present acting president of the Alumni Association of the Institute for Security Studies. Mike, pleasure to have you with us.
Good morning, Nigeria.
Also here with us on the program today is another regular analyst on security matters, Kabir Adamo, security risk management expert. Kabir, pleasure to have you with us on the program.
Pleasure is mine.
Okay. And Kirian, we have...
joining us from Kaduna Network Center is Assistant Inspector General of Police, Tambari Yabo. Tambari Yabo is a retired Assistant Inspector General of Police. So we're glad to have you this morning on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much, Kyria.
Sitting in our Kaduna studio is Mohammed Ali, a security expert. We're glad to have you as part of our team this morning.
A pleasure. Good morning, Syrian.
All right, gentlemen, once again, we welcome you to Good Morning Nigeria. Let's begin with the AIG in charge of federal operations. That's AIG Peter Ogunyowo. Our backgrounder talked about kidnapping, but obviously what we are experiencing in the country is not just kidnapping, but a cocktail of kidnapping, banditry, and all forms of criminality in virtually in every part of the country. The most prominent being what we are seeing in the northwest, in Kaduna, in Katsina, in Zamfara, and parts of Sokoto. What exactly is happening?
Thank you very much, sir. I think it's important for us to realize now that as a nation we must fight criminality together. For as long as we continue to give political or ethnic coloration to criminality, we will find it difficult to continue to tackle crimes. A criminal is a criminal. You cannot call a criminal a freedom fighter. As long as we continue to politicalize criminality, we even render security agents ineffective, and we even allow the political leadership to be partisan in how to take sound decision to curb criminality. So we must, as a nation, forge together to fight against crime, because these criminals they don't come from the moon. They live within us. Security agents need information to work. If it's your brother or somebody from your ethnic that is a criminal, I think it's better for your own safety and for the safety of the nation to know that as a Nigerian, as a citizen, we all have a duties to provide information for security agents to work and to even contribute positively. That is what the Section 24 of the Constitution says. But I doubt if most of us even know that we have a duty as a citizen. Rather, what we see is people talking, the government has not done this. Have we done our own part of duties as a citizen? That is...
I'm wondering, AIG, yeah, that's something that we could take up at the back end. But what the citizens are experiencing, and according to the regular reports that we have in the media, are incidents of banditry and kidnapping that often go unrestrained. The Abuja-Kaduna Highway, there were a number of reports last week, Birnin Gwari in parts of Kaduna, Zamfara, which of course led to the drastic action that was taken, and in other parts of the country. That's what I'm saying. Sketch for us. What is it that the security agencies are overwhelmed, or that the people are up against themselves?
Well, I wouldn't say the security agents are overwhelmed. What I'm saying is that when you look at the ratio of the security agents in terms of UN policing standard, you will still realize that we are still short of the whole security agents combined together. That is why we need the collaboration of the citizens. to assist in providing information. You can only work on what you have. For example, if a group of people move out to go and commit crime, there's nothing wrong. It will be deterrent if information is passed to police. You can nip it in the bud. We believe in preventing rather than want to combat, because by the time you want to combat, it can lead to fatality. That is what we are seeing. Everybody has a role to play. You can have all the armored tanks in this world, and if you don't know where and where, supposing along Kaduna Road, it's a long stretch. If you patrol towards area, the criminals are watching too. They know where, they know that little space. They can act within seconds, and by the time you go back there, they are into the bush. That is why intelligence is very key to curbing criminality.
And talking about intelligence, we do believe that you're an institution who should lead us in terms of intelligence gathering. And police adopted various operational methodologies, to combat this menace in recent past. So we recall that some time ago, it was declared that Kaduna Highway is now free, after some operations carried out by the police. But a little after that, right, they returned, and they returned with a bigger, velocity to the point where they now do it in almost on daily basis and in the broad daylight. Now, the issue Kingsley raised about being overwhelmed comes back to it. That's what does the police really need to ensure that areas that have been known to be notorious about this menace can be fully secured?
Well, let us not forget that we just concluded an election that the whole world concentrated on Nigeria, and that definitely took us out of some areas because we needed to ensure that our democracy is entrenched. So, peradventure, maybe little space were created for the criminals, but I think now the new police team has election off their hand now. So that is why you are now seeing this new strategy that they have to ensure that for the last time we don't allow, we reduce the operational capacity of operational space of the criminals. And that is what has led to this idea of Operation Puff Ada, which is ongoing now and is going to be extended to other states.
All right, thank you very much, AIG Ogunya. We'll come back to you in the course of the conversation. Let's bring in now Kabir Adamu. Kabir, what is your reading of the situation?
Quite unfortunate, frankly. A problem that should have been tackled at its inception has been allowed to become a monster. I am of the opinion that kidnapping has become an industry, unfortunately, in the country. The criminals go into kidnapping, they collect their money, they are able to spend that money, and unfortunately, others are seeing that, and they are also joining the fray. In criminology, you tackle criminality by doing three things. Firstly, you increase the risk so that the would-be criminal knows that if he goes into it, he may be arrested, he will be prosecuted. The second thing you do is you increase the effort that he requires to carry out that crime. And then thirdly, which is for me the most important one, the benefit, the reward that he gets from it, you make it impossible for him to spend that reward. So the question I would ask, and for the benefit of the purpose of this discussion, is in these three things, how have we fared? Unfortunately, I've picked each and every one of them, and I've come to the conclusion that we can do better in all of them. Is it increasing the effort? Is it increasing the risk? Or is it even the reward? I don't want to put the police on the spot in this regard. If we're talking about, for instance, the reward that comes from the criminality, the ransom they collect, I think that's something the National Assembly needs to look into. What laws do we have in place to manage the collection of the reward, and then even, for instance, to give the police and other law enforcement agencies the platform to handle this matter? Technology has given us a lot of assets that we can use. We have chips today for instance, that you can use to put in this reward, so that wherever they are collected, you follow it and you make sure you arrest those who collect it and you prosecute them. He's talked about intelligence. Intelligence is one of the most abused words in Nigeria today, unfortunately. We know, if you talk to people in Zamfara, which I do almost on a daily basis, they know who these bandits are. But there is a question there. How come those bandits are not arrested? Even when they are arrested, how come we are not seeing them being prosecuted? If you don't prosecute them, where is the deterrence element there? I hope in the course of the discussion we can look at the root causes of these issues and, of course, profile solutions.
All right. All right, thank you. And now to Mike Ejof, who is a security expert. Now, kidnapping is a global and a historic issue, not just in Nigeria, but in other climes. But what happens in Nigeria today is the fact that Nigerians in their tens every day are kidnapped for either economic, political, or other reasons, like a settlement of, personal grievances. What's your take on the present situation with respect to kidnapping and banditry in the country?
Well, it's alarming and quite disturbing. The speed at which kidnap goes on in this country calls for serious concern, national concern. You recall, just like Kabir said, the aims, the objectives. We have two types of kidnap. One purely, basically economic. People who are out to collect money. Then we have political, settling political scores and others. And we ask, what is actually, which one is more prevalent? You see, the one that's more prevalent now is economic. Because of the pure economic hard times, people go into crime. And we should not allow them space to operate, especially the police, which is the lead organization in terms of maintenance of internal security. Like the AIG said, I remember that the current acting Inspector General of Police assumed power just before the election. So he was busy with the conduct of the election, which is a different topic we'll discuss maybe some other time. Now that the election is over, I believe that he has to put more efforts to check this menace of kidnap. And I think they've started rightly. We had they had a meeting with the DGSSS, and the Inspector General of Police went to the Chief of Air Staff for support. One thing that gives me joy now is that there seems to be this synergy between the various security agencies, especially at the leadership and strategic level. And if that is done, it will go down the line so that everybody will operate together. Now, I saw yesterday, I think results have started coming, where the Air Force claimed they bombarded some of the locations. And this is a result of intelligence and synergy between the agencies. And I think, like the AIG said too, we need the support of the people. If we don't have the support of the people to volunteer information, there's no way this thing can work. And I think this is what is playing out now.
All right, Mike, thanks. We'll come back to you. I recall, of course, you had an unpleasant experience of having been kidnapped yourself. And we had you on Good Morning Nigeria to talk about your experience, the extent to which that was necessary to disclose. There are one or two things that we'll get you to clarify in the course of this conversation. Let's go over now to our Kaduna Network Center, where we earlier introduced two of our guests, retired AIG Tambari Yabo, as well as Mohammed Ali, who is a security expert. Gentlemen, again, let's get your opening salvo. I mean, you are in Kaduna there. I'm sure there are daily reports, if not in the official or private media, but at least by word of mouth, you get to hear about unpleasant experiences of persons who are either on the highway or in their villages. Farmlands have been left desolate on account of bandits and kidnappers just going to raid farms. And you are wondering, these are peasant farmers. What exactly, in your opinion, is happening?
Well, thank you, Kingsley. Like you rightly said, you know that in Kaduna in particular, Kaduna-Abuja Road is a very terrible place now for commuters. Kaduna-Birnin-Gwari is also another very bad place in terms of kidnapping. They not only kidnap commuters, even security agencies who are at the point of their duties are being kidnapped and sometimes killed. Very recently, some soldiers who are at the point of their duties were killed around Birnin-Gwari forest. So it is really becoming very alarming and very disturbing. And I think what we need to do is to look at this issue holistically. We shouldn't leave it just in the hands of the military to coerce these people. There is need to bring in the society at large, the traditional rulers, the vigilante groups. Don't underestimate them. In the Northeast, the civilian JTF has made significant contributions in the fight against the Boko Haram. Here too, if they are encouraged, I'm sure they'll go a long way in helping to find solutions. You need to bring them, the traditional rulers, the vigilante group, community leaders, the imams, everybody, bring them to seminars, educate them, give them some training on how to pass information, because information has to be managed properly. If you don't manage it properly, then you might have done more harm than good to the whole process. So I think that there is need definitely now to call this type of seminar immediately and educate the people so that they can give their own contributions. The military too, who are at the forefront, who have the constitutional responsibility to find a solution to this. Not quite a week ago, the Chief of Army Staff publicly said they are not having enough equipments with which to face these bandits. No amount is too much to be spent for our lives, all of us. If you go to the developed part of the world, you find out that they do everything to ensure, because security should be paramount in any nation. It should be paramount. No amount should be considered too much for security. Go to South Africa, go to other places, you find that if you go to a police division, for instance, way back in 1989, when I went for peacekeeping in South Africa, Namibia, Angola, you find that in an average police station, there are 16 vehicles, 16 to 20 vehicles in a police station. So that if there is a report, the team that is on duty can easily just make their bookings and off they head to the place and address the issue. But now along Kaduna-Abuja Road, sometimes you go to the police and ask them, they will tell you that the vehicle has no battery. Which type of country are we living in? In this type of situation, the police will say, they don't have battery in their car. It's so terrible. Some of the vehicles you see along the road are just stationary there. They can't move even 1 kilometer. We must address these problems if we are to find a solution to this matter. And the quicker we do it, the better for the nation and for all of us. So I suggest that we should have that seminar, because we cannot live in isolation. We have to compare ourselves with what happened in other parts of the world, so that we will not be saying that so-so-so is so much for so-so-so and so-so-so and so-so-so. So if it is so, please quickly organize these community seminars and train these people and let them help the military. And let the military... Another issue that I don't believe maybe those who are charged with the responsibility of following these people inside the bushes do not go to the bushes. Definitely they don't go there. Because from the experiences of those who were kidnapped that we hear about, somebody who was kidnapped was discussing with me. He told me that he was kidnapped along Abuja-Kaduna Road at around Regina Village by about 8 in the evening, 7:38, and they entered the bush with him, and they were trekking till 12 in the night. 4 hours or thereabout before they now finally had to stop. Now, if this is what happened, and then for days they were there, and nobody went there to look for them. So that will show you that definitely the security agencies generally do not enter into the hinterland to look for these people. So now that it appears the government, there is a renewed vigor to really follow this kidnapping business, they should enter right inside the hinterland, right inside the bushes. They should enter there. After all, we have aerial jet fighters. Can they use them to take these people? Like one of our contributors has said, what has happened in Zamfara 2-3 days ago was a very good starter. It's a very good omen of so many things that are to come. We hope that they will do all these things. Now, it's very easy. They have to identify, they have to mark and identify where these kidnapping activities are on the increase, are very rampant. For instance, the Kaduna-Abuja, Kaduna-Brenengwari, then if you go in between Kaduna, Niger, Katsina, and Zamfara, there is a buffer zone there. There's a very big forest where till tomorrow you have elephants and lions and what have you. Now those are the places. If you are coming from the Kebbi side in Sakaba Osugu local government, that is to the east of Zuru. If you are coming from Katsina side, from Batsari, Safana, Tamusa, Tandume, Sabua, joining Soho Gwari, which is already in Kaduna State, those are the boundaries. If you are coming from Zamfara State, you have Safe local government. To the west of Safe, you have to the west of Gusau itself local government, you have to the west of Maru local government, Dansado district, which is very, very, as far as kidnapping is concerned, those people have been reduced to nothing.
All right, we would like to appreciate your initial comment, retired AIG Tambari Bayo. You're already preferring solutions to the menace. And we would like to remain in Kaduna with Muhammad Ali, who is a security expert. But I want to ask you this. What, in your opinion, as a security expert, is the reason for continued attacks in Kaduna area? Of course, just yesterday we heard about 20 killed, houses burnt down. So there is banditry on one hand, and there is kidnapping on the other hand. And why has it become so perennial in that part of the country that all the efforts made by the authorities to stem down the tide of the bickerings and quarrels, be it community conflicts and what have you, they have all persisted? Please share with us what the problem really is before we go into how they can be tackled.
Very important economic hubs where very senior civil servants.
Mr. Syrian, the problem, as you rightly observed, is not just of kidnapping. It's a cluster of issues. Banditry, cattle rustling. These two are the factors that give birth to the issue of kidnapping. And kidnapping started as a byproduct of the violent conflicts that have been raging on between nomadic Fulanis and sedentary agrarian communities within the states of Kaduna, Katsina, and Zamfara. And this has been escalating very seriously and spreading to many parts of not only the 3 states mentioned, but the entire Northwest geopolitical zone. With the rising toll of deaths and multiple number of kidnap cases reported almost on a daily basis. And this has a potential to threaten safety, security, and stability in the entire Northwest zone and by extension, Nigeria. So it has a very serious potential that is dangerous. In fact, more dangerous than what we saw during the Boko Haram insurgency in the northeast axis of this country. So one of the major issues or the areas that needs to be tackled are the Kamuku Forest in Birnungwaru local government, which is in Kaduna State, the Falgore Forest in Kano State, though in the last 4 months or thereabout, the military have done a very excellent job in that. So Falgore Forest is, to some extent, a little safe now. Then we have the Ansado Forest, and of course, the Dajun Rugu Forest, which stretches through Kaduna, Katsina, Zamfara states, and of course, extended into the fringes of Niger Republic. So these are the areas where these hoodlums are using as their cover or hideouts in order to continue their illegal harvest of killing or abducting people for ransom and so on.
All right. Mohammed Ali, thank you very much. We'll return to you shortly. But you know, Kabiru Adamu, just before I ask you this question, retired AIG Tambari Yabo was talking about the forest cover and where these bandits or kidnappers operate. They kidnap their victims and they trek for several hours in the forest. According to him, you have wild animals in those forests. Have there been reports of lions attacking these persons as they are progressing, trekking in the forest? If you were in the Kruger National Park in South Africa, you were walking barefooted, of course, the following morning, park rangers will find your dead body. So how come this forest where there are wild animals, these kidnappers are able to move, or are there carcasses of animals showing that when the animals try to attack, the kidnappers then shot and killed the animals? That's a point, that we can address subsequently. But there's one point I would like you and Mike Ejiofor to also speak on. Are there similarities in what we are seeing now with what we saw in the Northeast in terms of the mode of operation? Also now in the Northwest. There are reports of these bandits riding on motorcycles, getting into villages, shooting sporadically, kidnapping those whom they can kidnap, and then setting their houses on fire. And then you are kidnapping peasant farmers and asking for ransom. Is there any similarity? Have we found a situation where the Boko Haram terrorists have migrated from the Northeast to the Northwest, or what exactly is playing out?
Information at my...
all right, Kabiru, yes, start off and then Mike can also join.
Information at my disposal does not suggest a link between the two groups. One is ideological, that's the armed opposition groups in the Northeast. They are purely ideological. They use, of course, criminal methods, terrorist methods, in an attempt to achieve their objectives. And I think therein lies the similarity. The killings, the wanton destruction of public property, villages, burning them down. But in terms of their objectives, totally different. Like I said, the armed opposition groups in the Northeast are ideological. They want to establish a Sharia enclave, quote unquote. But, all of them, 3 or 4 of them that are operating. Now the bandits, we see the issue as a socio-political issue that started, like what one of the speakers in Kaduna mentioned, as an issue between 2 communities, really. Perhaps one of them felt shortchanged. And this is where I think we need to do a sociological research to find out why herders, quote unquote, suddenly lost their cattle, have no means of livelihood, and then decided to embrace the gun. That's one point. Second point, where are the guns coming from? That's another point that we need to investigate. It's on record that of all the ECOWAS countries, Nigeria is one of the members that doesn't have a commission on tackling the issue of small arms and light weapons. Then the third point, which is also very important, arresting these criminals and then prosecuting them, our weak criminal justice system. So there in all of these issues that I mentioned lies the similarity between the situation in the Northeast and the situation in the Northwest. But in terms of their objectives, I don't see any correlation between the two.
Mike?
Yeah, you see, like he rightly said, all these things are criminally based, whether ideological or sociological, economical. They're criminals and should be treated as such. I tell you, like you said earlier, this issue of kidnapping, unfortunately, we have come to stay with it. It's going to take time to be defeated because they are very well organized. I'll tell you from personal experience. They don't operate less than 8 in number. They operate between 8 to 12 because they are very well organized. And in their cells, you have the intelligence cell, you have the operational cell, you have the support group, technical group, in each of these groups. So they are not purely illiterates. And until the harsh economic conditions are addressed, we have come to stay with it, unfortunately. Because why I say this, some of them have the backings of prominent politicians and high people in the society. How do you, like he asked, how do they acquire the guns they use? We see guns being seized, at the port of entry. And have you seen any AK-47 than pump action? But these people are armed with AK-47. That means they have the backing and supply of it. I tell you from experience, the time they were negotiating for my release, they openly tell you that people give them the gun, they have to pay for it. So it's going to be difficult. But we should also concentrate our efforts, the people, the government, the security agency should work together to see that this menace is brought to an end. It's not going to end easily, unfortunately.
Yes, I think I also had a story of a friend of mine who's the CEO of a big firm who also experienced, kidnapping along Enugu-Owerri road. And he shared the same experience of Mike, that these are very organized people, educated people, married with families, talk to their children while in operation and all of that. And the question will now be, if the guns, all these, how do you call it, light...
weapons.
Yes, are in hands of many, light weapons are in hands of many. What are the sources of these hand weapons? And I'd like to return to Peter Babatunde here with us, Assistant Inspector General of Police, Federal Operations. In terms of determining how guns get into the hands of hoodlums, what is the take of the police in this regard? Is there any operational structure put in place to hunt for guns that are in wrong hands? Because from all the stories that we've had, it does seem that those hoodlums are properly equipped in terms of operational weapons.
Thank you very much. I wouldn't say the police is not properly equipped, but like Mr. Mike Ejiofor said, these weapons are not easily, they are not just sold anywhere, and they are purchased with money. And definitely somebody must be sponsoring. That means they probably have backings. But beyond that, a few years back, the former IG did a mop-up operation where people were asked to submit their weapons, and what did we see? People submitting den guns and the rest, keeping the other ones behind. And most of these carriers of the weapons, unfortunately, are people we regard as political thugs. That is why I talk of coloration. Like he said, a criminal is a criminal. when we start talking of ideology and the rest, we are debating, we want to tackle criminality in Western ways. Do we have the technical capability? I think we should define a way of tackling our own problem. When we start talking of ideology, as far as we are concerned, a criminal is a criminal. It doesn't matter whether it has a religious coloration. Some of them bring in religious coloration for sympathy. So if we buy that idea, it means we are likely to have sympathizers even within our ranks. As to how do we tackle these issues, it brings us to the issue of what we talk the punishment for all these for bearing weapons. Are they deterrent enough? And the answer is no. That is why we have to bring in even the legislation. But unfortunately, there are politicians, and some of the bearers of the weapons are regarded as political talks. So the last discussion I had in NTA, I said the media has to come in if we have to blackmail the legislators into upgrading all these laws, some of these laws that has to tackle criminality. We just have to do it, because if punishments are not deterrent, it gives people encouragement to continue to commit crimes. And unfortunately, unlawful possession of firearms that under the criminal code has just a fine of 14 naira, ridiculous, is one of them, and is the major bane of this country's criminal situation, because for as long as we continue to have weapons in the hands of people who are not lawfully empowered, it gives encouragement to people to commit crime and make people who wants to live their normal life to be intimidated. So we need to bring in the legislators to assist us in tackling, making this unlawful possession of firearms deterrent.
All right, thank you very much, AIG Ogunyo. Let's return to our guests in our Kaduna Network Center. And my question is going first to Muhammad Ali, and then, of course, retired AIG Tambari Yabo. That's a point that Kabir Adamu mentioned, and, of course, also amplified by Mike Ejiofor, and it's as follows. How can kidnappers be deterred in terms of the proceeds of their crime? I'm asking this question because when you look at some of the operatives who have been arrested, and the police have done a good job of this, that's the intelligence response team or unit of the IG's office. You arrest them, and when you watch the tapes or the video clips, you just find that, you know, these are scruffy elements, and yet they keep talking about millions and millions and millions. Are they the ones who are receiving these millions? Why do they spend the money in the first instance? So how then do you deter them from that? And in terms also of the level of organization of the kidnapping ring, it's a point of curiosity whether lightning strikes twice in the same place. In other words, do we have reports of one person who has been kidnapped more than once? Maybe after they kidnap you, download your account, you know, they set you free. And when next they get, have there been such reports? Can we understand all of this?
We have not received the report of one person kidnapped twice. But Mr. Kingsley and our listeners out there needs to understand that this kidnapping has today become a big business. Like it or leave it, we have syndicate managers living right amongst us who are collaborating with the kidnappers. In fact, they served as informants to the kidnappers who give them intelligence information as to who has gone to bank, who is having what, and who is doing what.
Sold a car and so on and so forth.
He has sold a car today, or he has been seen in the bank. He has withdrawn millions of naira in 10 Ghana must go, things like that. So the punishment, if at all it has to be meted, should include the syndicate managers who are actually living amongst us. And the time kidnappers who are arrested, the time it takes for them to be kept in the cells, I think is also something that needs to be looked at. It gives them a leeway to sometimes pay for their bail. I've seen a situation where somebody has paid as much as ₦1 million to be set free. Now, what stops that same person going back to engage in kidnapping? Since he knows he can get money, okay, he has paid $1 million to be set free. He will go back whenever he kidnaps. What he will demand is 5 or 10 million naira from his victim, so that if he's arrested again, he can part with 2 million. So I think the legislatures or the National Assembly should sit up and promulgate a law that will provide for death sentence for anybody caught in the process of kidnapping. Whether he has maimed his victim or not, he should be hanged and executed publicly. That will be the main breakthrough. But the moment we continue to arrest these kidnappers and keep them in cells, awaiting for their relatives to come and pay for bail, I think we'll continue to create the problem. And I want to ask the IG with us, is actually bail free? We've been told time and again bail is free, but people, even with minor cases, people are hundreds of thousands of naira are demanded from relatives of victims as payment for bail. So all these are issues that needs to actually be corrected. If we want to have our acts right, we have to sit up and do the right thing and ensure that whoever runs foul of the law is dealt with sarcastically. Otherwise, this issue of kidnapping will not go, will not leave us.
Well, let's remain in Kaduna and allow retired AIG Tambari Yabo to come in here very briefly too. In your opening comment, you were so passionate about how poorly equipped the Nigerian police is, and you also tried to profess solution to what can be done to track the hoodlums wherever they are. In your opinion, and one who has served in the Nigerian police, is it a possibility to inject technology in all of this? If your answer is yes, what kind of technology would you suggest the police to, of course, to apply to see how the hoodlums can be tracked anywhere they are? Because presently, as you all have said, Nigeria is not adequately policed as a nation.
Well, thank you, Kirian. Technology is already committed. The military, especially the Air Force, their fighter jets, they have very powerful cameras with which they can use to take pictures of objects that are down many kilometers away from them, and they can accurately calculate the distance and then strike and get their targets. So technology is already on. Even the police, they are using technology, man, to track down these criminals. However, Kingsley, it is also important, like the president did when it comes to question of corruption, these whistleblowers. The same thing should be done because this thing has reached an alarming rate now, and we must find a solution. So I suggest that we should also have something like whistleblowers, or people who give correct information about these hoodlums and where they stay. They should be given some rewards like the whistleblowers are given. I think if we do this, it will go a long way in making people to come out. In any case, as police officers, we know that people give information. There are three categories of informants. Why people give information to the police? One, there are people who give information because they want to be paid money, monetary reward. Two, there are people who give information because they want to see the correct thing being done. They want to see the country at peace in this situation. Therefore, they will give information. Then there are people who give information because they want to settle scores, whether they are political scores, whatever type of scores they have, they can decide to come and mislead the security agencies. So if you put, like you did in the corruption fight, you do the same thing as far as this kidnapping is concerned, I'm very sure it will go a long way in trying to find a solution. About the question you asked, how they spend their money, they lavish the money. If you go right inside the bushes, they used to have barbecues, they used to have parties, they dance and wine and do whatever they want to do because they know that on their own, nobody will come there. I have seen clips where these people used to have parties, dances, young men and young women were having fun right inside the middle of the bush. They're on their own. Nobody is coming, so they can do whatever they want to. So that's how they spend the money. They lavish the money. That's what they do.
All right. Retired AIG Tambari Yabo, thank you very much. And gentlemen, we're still continuing with this conversation. We have a number of tweets that have come in. We are taking a short break now, and when we return, we'll take those tweets. But just a piece of advice to those who are sending in their tweets. A tweet is supposed to be a short message. So please avoid writing an essay. If you have written an essay, try and revise it and give us no more than 2 sentences, crisp sentences. We'll take a short break now.
Team huddle. But we lost. Don't be tired, guys. This isn't a loss. It's a practice for winning.
Nothing makes a mother prouder than seeing her child growing up. But I know as he learns to lead, he'll face even more dirt, germs, and risk of illness.
That's why in changing seasons, you need strong Dettol protection. Because Dettol protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Growing up needs Dettol protection.
To they disobey traffic law, they cause accidents. Me, I don't talk, say, I no go dey do them again, because change begins with me.
I will no longer endanger my life crossing the express. Instead, I will use the bridge, because change begins with me.
Oga driver, stop this bus now, won't come down. I be one carry me past where they go.
Make they stop anyhow for road, they cause traffic wahala and accidents. So I go dey stop for the right bus stop, because change begins with me.
Change begins with me.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
All right, welcome back, and it's still Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Let's take your comments now that have come in by way of tweets. One of our regulars, Festus Akinboyowa, decisive and speedy trial and punishment of those involved in kidnapping and other heinous crimes will go a long way in checking the menace. Kira?
All right, and from Ibrahim Tudu, unless our leaders stop being analog and appreciate digital technology, we may not get through. Global mobile tech, drones, global positioning systems, GPS, and other tracking devices are available and can be easily deployed. Why should we allow bandits be ahead of us? I think this is a very good point, Mr.
Absolutely. Now, Sonny Michael Amakoji tweets, says that we should not forget in a hurry that kidnapping that we are witnessing today is a fallout of elections that were characterized by violence. Former thugs are now kidnappers. No thanks to politicians.
All right, Ibrahim Tudu again. It's disheartening how kidnappers make direct calls to victims with impunity. Why don't we hold national network carriers accountable, and why is NCC powerless over all these incidents?
Now, Akeju Olagbaju tweets, now the kidnappers are armed robbers and more deadly. They transformed into kidnapping because commuters no longer carry cash. The law should be applied severely to deal with them.
From Murtala Ali Jabo, my advice in these insecurity issues is to the government, for the government to shut down all communication networks for 2 weeks until all the SIM card gets registered, and the security troops shall move on with their operations in the areas affected, and the success is shelled.
All right, we have this from Mike Ayankwa. It says that some innocent persons have lost their lives just for being victims of kidnapping. More worrisome is that we have not seen serious cases in the law courts where adequate punishment is meted out.
And from APCA, all we need is to put all security mechanisms, including the use of helicopters, to tackle this issue. I believe in our security men.
And Law Officer has this tweet that kidnapping and banditry have taken a great toll on the country, and this is worrisome.
All right, from Chris Simeon, on a serious note, there is high rate of kidnapping in the country today. My question is kidnapping and abduction the only business kidnappers could venture into?
All right, these are the tweets that we should take in the meantime, Kirian, I believe. Let's bring in our guests again who are here with us. Kabir Adamu, what can we do much more effectively? We listened, of course, there have been all kinds of suggestions, including those from our guests in our Kaduna Network Center. Now, the Northwest Zone is in the news, but there are daily experiences, the Benin or Shagamu Expressway, in the southeast, parts of the south-south, and in virtually every place, and here in Abuja as well. What more can the security agencies do much more speedily?
In my opening remarks, I mentioned 3 things. Increase the effort, increase the measures that you take to the risk involved in it, and then lastly, make it difficult for the benefits of the reward. Now, the security agencies, I would like to see more synergy. I'm very happy with developments in the last few days, really. The acting IG of police reached out to the Nigerian Air Force, and we've seen better coordination, and of course with the DSS. Now, intelligence. There are 2 basic types of intelligence that are useful in fighting crime, kidnapping. One of the tweets mentioned the Nigerian Communication Commission and the service providers. No private agency would divulge that kind of information. Let's call it spade a spade. It is not in their realm to provide that kind of information to government. Rather, government needs to acquire technical and surveillance capabilities to get that information itself. And I'm glad to note that this equipment are available and they're not too expensive. So I frankly do not understand why we've not acquired them for monitoring this kind of conversations, pinpointing through different means exactly where the conversation is going on, and then going ahead to arrest. If we tie this to the fact that we don't have enough personnel, then we now understand why intelligence is important. If you can't dominate the forest, remember there is a presidential directive that those forest areas should be dominated. I don't think it's feasible. With human beings. We need technology to dominate that forest. What kind of technology? I've mentioned surveillance, and there are different means to do surveillance. The other technology that is also very important in this regard is the use of surveillance, drones as an example. We can send them out so that we see how this movement are. But more important, really, in all of this, no matter the amount of intelligence you have, if you do not effect arrests and prosecute those that you arrest, then it's useless. In this regard, I would like to talk a bit about the measure by the federal government to ban mining in Zamfara. I see that measure as a bit, too haphazard, too early. Instead of that, I expected those that, quote unquote, are collaborating with the bandits to be arrested and then subjected to our courts. That would be the deterrence element there. But unfortunately, in a state where the IGR is probably the lowest in the country, and then you now ban mining. Now, the fertile ground for the continuation of criminality would be created. What is it? Poverty? Poor, a weak criminal justice system. So I expect government to be a bit more coordinated in its responses so that we don't see a continuation of all of these factors.
All right,
gentlemen,
Kirian, just before we leave this subject, I just want to make this point so that you then take up your question. Kabir was talking about technology that is readily available to track conversations. More than 25 years ago, the American security and intelligence agencies were in collaboration with the Colombian authorities in seeking to track down Pablo Escobar, who was a notorious drug lord. And the end of Pablo Escobar came on account of tracking the telephone conversations that he was having.
Exactly.
That was more than 25 years ago, and by now the technology would have improved. So why can't we acquire such things?
This is a high tech, you know, and most of the time when I speak about the Nigerian communications satellite that Nigeria owns, that is underutilized, but it will seem as if that infrastructure belongs to my family. But this is deploying the giant in the orbit that Nigeria has to be able to, you know, do some work. As a matter of fact, it has all the necessary bands, the L band, the A band, the KU band, and what have you. And one of the bands is dedicated to tracking. Right, and that was why, of course, you know, America, as you were told, were not in support of that band because China included it in the relaunched Nigerian communications satellite, you know, which is for tracking, you know. And that's what we're saying. So now the question will be to the AIG here with us. Well, it has been established that what we have today on our hands is a dreadful challenge that disrupts the tranquility and harmonious consolation of this country. And of course, we're not putting you on spot as police, but of course, when it comes to security, you are leading, especially when it comes to civil security. Now, what do you need now as an institution to see how this battle can be won? We've mentioned technology. What others? We mentioned intelligence. And again, how efficacious is the intelligence gathering of the police and other, of course, other agencies that you collaborate with?
Thank you. I would rather say, what do we need as security agents? Because the police cannot fight criminality alone. It's everybody's business, including me and you, including the media. So what do we need? For the civilians, we need their patriotism and collaboration to provide intelligence. Then we must realize that funding security adequately is essential for economic growth. The retired AIG talked about, gave a scenario, a past scenario previously of vehicles having no battery. I know there was a scenario like that, but under this present operation, I'm sure over 90% of those vehicles deployed are serviceable. But how far can that be sustained is another challenge.
Dangote donated some vehicles to the police not too long ago.
Yes, but Dangote did not donate. It didn't come with cash backing and the rest. Dangote donated vehicles, 150, which we actually appreciated, but that was not budgeted for. The fueling of those vehicles. Those are the challenges. Security requires adequate funding.
You don't have your own internal budgeting for fueling your cars for operations or something?
You see, in budgeting, there is something we call appropriation. There is another thing we call releases. How much of the fund appropriated was released for the police? We can get all those ones from the National Assembly. We can get those ones from even the commissioners of police to find how much of releases were given to them to fund rather, I'm not trying to praise the police in any way, but I want to stand challenged that in the whole of the world, the Nigerian police stands the only organization that put in a lot of resources, both from wherever, to keep the nation safe.
Would you subscribe to an emergency in this area? Declaration of emergency in this area, so that you know, the nation can now see you know how we push, you know, to.
Well, it doesn't matter what we call it. What I just know is that we need adequate funding. The retired AIG talk about even for you to get information. Some people you need to pay them before they will give you information, because that is their means of livelihood.
All right. AIG, let's pause here. Let's go very quickly to our Kaduna Network Center to also get their thoughts on some of these aspects. I'm just wondering, Mohammed Ali, before Tambari Yabo retired AIG, is there a sense in which perhaps what we are seeing in the Northwest, and which might percolate to other parts of the country, that Nigeria is probably under invasion by foreigners. When we talk about herdsmen, we say Fulani herdsmen. Fulanis are all over West Africa. I mean, we always had Fulani herdsmen in these communities. They were not raiding and destroying those communities. What exactly is playing out, and the kinds of weapons that they are using now? Have we sufficiently interrogated that perspective? I know that President Buhari at some point had raised this, but politically, it was dismissed. That they said, no, what do you mean by foreigners are involved in all this? But can we look at it much more closely? If Katsina is under siege, Zamfara, parts of Sokoto, and more especially Kaduna.
Mr. Kingsley, the Fulanis Nigerians living with us. If you cast your mind back to some 30, 35 years ago, the Fulanis have lived side by side their host agrarian communities without any problem. But of recent, the emergence of informal security actors, the vigilante groups, they have evolved a means by which they attack Fulani settlements, arrest them for all sorts of accusations, take them to their own camps, charge them. In the process, some of them are even killed, because 5 days ago, precisely on the 7th of this month, 5 Fulani youths who came into Funtua General Hospital to see a sick relative were subsequently killed by members of the vigilante group operating in Katsina, which is illegal, because even if they are charged of any offense, what they need to do is to arrest them and take them to the police. They have no right whatsoever to conduct even investigation, not to talk of killing them. Here in Kabobo, under Igabi local government in Kaduna State, 5 Fulani youths were equally arrested. 2 of them were summarily killed by members of the JTF operating in Igabi local government. And as I speak today, the whereabouts of the 3 is still unknown. So government needs to sit up and check the activities of all these vigilante group and the so-called JTF that are operating within the axis of Kaduna, Katsina, and Zamfara states, because most of them have turned into predators, killing Fulani at will and taking over their cattle to sell. And I was told in confidence by an affected Fulani man that his father and mother were killed in their camp, and 150 of their cattle were rustled away by this group of vigilantes. And two weeks after, they came back again. So thereafter, he resolved with his own brother that they should go and buy buy arms. And of course, through their contact, they were able to buy 2 AK-47 in order to defend themselves. So this is currently what is happening. But it is not so bad. There is still room for negotiation, that we can talk to some of these people and see how we can draw them to a dialogue. Let's come round, have a round table, discuss some of these issues, and let's call a spade a spade. We know those who are doing what and how and why. If this is done, let the offenders be identified and dealt with sarcastically. We'll be able to bring an end to this. But the stereotyping about Fulanis has to stop. Fulanis are Nigerians. There is a lot of stereotyping and media hype against the Fulanis. So people are, to an extent, trying to view them or look at the Fulani man as an alien.
All right. Thank you much indeed. Kingsley, yes, there are many dimensions to this conversation. Absolutely. When it comes to what happens in the bush, the JTF or the vigilante groups are taking laws into their hands, executing people, in fact, putting people behind bars. And from the story he told us now, 2 brothers decided to go and look for arms, and they sourced the arm. that means, of course, that we have gun runners, you know, who are prepared to sell these arms to people who need it. So it's really a complex situation. Before we conclude, let me return to Kaduna and ask retired AIG Tambari Yabo to give us his final comments in all of this.
Just want to take off from where Mr. Ali has stopped about the relationship between these Fulanis and the vigilante, so to speak. Well, Kinsley, for the sake of Kinsley and Kirian, you are all from the south. Kinsley from maybe Benin, Osadilo is a Benin name, and Kirian from maybe Akwa Ibom. Now, for those of us who are brought up from the north, for the last 100 years or more, the Fulanis have been living peacefully with their neighbors. There was no problem whatsoever. However, when the farmers started encroaching, because in those days, even when we were young, you find that in each village, there is what they call mashaya, that is all the year round where water is collected, and the Fulanis go there to water their cattle. And there is also a route that goes to that place. Nobody farms on that route. Everybody knows that place to be cattle route, and therefore no farm is to be established along the cattle route. Thirdly, there is Makiaya. Makiaya is where they rear their cattle during dry season so that they will not go and cause mischief on people's farm where they have planted crops. Now, all small by small, there has been encroachment on Makiayas, there has been encroachment on Mashayas, there has been encroachment on the cattle route. And that is the beginning of clashes between the Fulanis and their neighbors. So if we want to really address this problem, nothing stops us from sitting down as Nigerians and round table, and each person putting on his case, and then we dialogue over it and provide solutions which I believe everybody will accept, and we will have a peaceful coexistence.
Retired AIG Tambari Yabo, thank you very much. Sorry we have had to cut you short, but we just want to get the closing thoughts also of another guest of ours, Mike Ejiofor. But just before Mike comes in, you were trying to trace the place of origin of my colleague Kirian. His last name is Umayo. You said it's probably from Akwa Ibom. Maybe if we trace his family tree, probably we'll have a branch in Akwa Ibom. But it's actually a chief, you know, from Enugu. It's a chief, you know, from Enugu. All right, Mike, for your closing thoughts. Very briefly.
My closing thoughts is that we have this challenge, and until it is addressed, everybody must be security conscious, because everybody, religious leaders, politicians, military, police, are potential targets. So we must be security conscious. In case one is kidnapped, you have to obey the instructions, cooperate with them, and try as much as possible not to escape. This problem has come to stay with us, and until it is solved, let us be vigilant.
Yeah, Kabir.
Yes, just to emphasize what Mike has said, it's a problem that is with us, and unfortunately we're all potential victims. So security consciousness, who is around you, what kind of information do you divulge, how do you live your life, do you give the profile of a rich person who has money? Do you make phone calls that people around who shouldn't hear should hear? Who are your domestic workers? Do you know them? Are you fair to them? If you are working in your working environment, what kind of security measures do you have in place? And then also, what arrangement have you put in place for if it happens, for instance? So these are things that we should all think about at the moment, and make sure that we share as much information with the security agencies as possible.
All right, gentlemen, it's said that to conclude this edition of the program. Well, of course, you can never exhaust this kind of topic in just one outing. We hope that in due course we will be able to return this topic on this platform. At this point, we'd like to thank everyone and appreciate your comments. We begin with the Assistant Inspector General of Police, Peter Babatunde Ogunyawo. It's a pleasure hosting you today on the program. And then also Mike Ejiofor, who has been a victim and the former director of the State Security Service. It's been wonderful sharing your experience on this edition of the program. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
And Kabiru Adamu, security expert and of course a regular face on Good Morning Nigeria. It's been a pleasure having you today again, as always.
The pleasure is mine. Thank you.
Thank you. And of course, from Kaduna, where we had very healthy conversation, we'd like to thank retired AIG Tambari Iyabo. Thank you, sir, for being part of our show this morning. And also Mohammed Ali, a security expert. Both of you spoke to us from our Kaduna Network Center. It's been nice talking to you this morning on this show.
All right, so that does it for us on Good Morning Nigeria today. We'd like to thank you for tuning in. We're back tomorrow, same time, 7 o'clock in the morning. My name is Kingsley Osadolo, wishing you the very best of the day.
Yes, I'm Kirin Umayo. Thank you for watching.